That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
All right. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today is Jack Sewpersaud. How are you?
Pretty good. Had a good morning. We're recording on Free Comic Book Day, so had a good time at my local comic book store. You know.
Yeah, Jack's first Free Comic Book Day. I don't know when they really started doing this either, but for a while I didn't have a comic shop around me, and then this small shop popped up probably about 6 or more years ago now. But usually try to get out there every Free Comic Book Day. They got some good stuff out there. By the time you're listening to it, it's probably already all done, but sometimes they have these extra, they have extra of these free comic books like Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, Judgment Day, a little free preview of that, Marvel Voices, DC's Dark Crisis, Donald Duck, Spider-Man and Venom. And then my shop had where you could pick 20, back issues for free. So I grabbed a whole bunch of Superman, Man of Steel. These are like, they for some reason had a whole bunch from this run in the 90s to the 2000s. I have anywhere ranging from the first issue all the way up to like 122 or whatever. So kind of all over the place on which ones I have here. But made sure to grab a few that were in a row. And then I grabbed some Excalibur comics. And then I also bought Marvel Contest of Champions, which was a run a while ago. It was like a 3-issue series. It's like 3 issues printed together that they had there. I got that 50% off, and I got Fantastic Four Life Story 3, 4, 5, and 6. They didn't have issue 2 because I just got issue 1. You know what pisses me off though? I just saw issue 2 there Wednesday when I went to get my comics and got Life Story 1, and I said, I'll just get it on Saturday when I go back for Free Comic Book Day. And nope. And then I asked the guy at the front, and he said, I know they don't have them at the Parkville store because he works there too and he hasn't seen it there. So I just bit the bullet and bought it on eBay while we were talking. So I can have the whole set.
Yeah.
And then I bought this cool Silver Surfer Rebirth, which has the old Marvel Comics logo and like box. They kind of got rid of these recently, and I think this just looks the best. Like I don't understand why they ever got rid of these. Yeah, they've had it on there since the 60s. I don't know why they ever got rid of it. Probably make it more streamlined, but I hate the little box. This little box that just says like Marvel 1. That's lame.
Yeah. Not as cool, for sure.
How was your first day for Comic Book Day?
It was good, and I looked it up, actually. This is the 20th edition of Free Comic Book Day. It started in 2002. So,
wow. It gets bigger every year.
But
it really does, I feel like.
I think I would guess so, especially since I think interest in comic books has risen a lot as well recently, which is very cool. I mean, hey, I literally just got into them this past year, so there is that. But I went to my store and I got 3 back issues. I only buy back issues. I don't buy new stuff usually. I have 1 and 2 Doctor Strange ones, which is going to be timely since this is about Doctor Strange for the most part. We're going to talk about Doctor Strange movie eventually. And so I picked those up, but unlike Jordan's store, which had, you could pick out 20 free back issues. Mine had to deal with the first 100 customers to come in and make a purchase would get a random grab bag of 30 free comic books. And the first 25 people to come in would get a random variant cover. And I was the second person of the day to check out, actually, because first is the worst and second is the best. So you've got it. I had to.
I don't know. Ricky Bobby says if you're not first, you're last.
I don't know. I don't know. maybe it's both ways. But my variant cover that I got was this Venom #2 from 2021, so a relatively recent one. Goes for about $20 right now, and I got it for free, which is super cool. I also got a few cool things in that random grab bag. There were a few that I don't know if I'm gonna read them and enjoy them. Maybe I'll try reading.
Tell
them.
us the money one.
Called,
Tell us the big one. Yeah.
One of the ones is called Exorcisters. It's about two sisters who, because of a domestic dispute, are connected to the devil somehow. That's what the synopsis says. I'm not sure what to think about it. It's interesting, that's for sure. But in terms of things that I'm super excited for, I got this cool Universe X Moon Knight comic from 2001, which has really good cover art on it. I got a recent comic called Absolute Made, which has just a very cool cover on it. It's issue #4. I got a War Machine comic from 1994. So that was a pretty cool one to see in there. And I got a Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Black Cat comic from 2016. And the coolest superhero that you've never heard of, the Highwayman. The Highwayman is a trucker who, fed up with life, given alien technology, which supposedly he uses to try and murder his brother.
That he was originally having responsibilities to raise.
Right.
So I'm kind of confused by where that turns, but
well, luckily this comic is going to answer that, because it asks the question on the cover, who is the Highwayman? So maybe I'll figure that out by the end of this. On the cover, if that's the Highwayman on the cover right here, that looks like M. Bison from Street Fighter with a mustache drawn on. That's what it looks like right there. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. It's from 1984. So we'll see. Luckily, I also have a coupon for a free Spider-Man comic book when I mail in 3 proofs of purchase from Oreo. We'll see if they still honor that. Darn! The order had to be received by May 1984. That's unfortunate. Guess I won't get that free Spider-Man comic book.
Well, I will say the reviews for Exorcisters is looking pretty good on my comic app here. Comics Geek has a 83% of people liked it that have read it, with a 3.8.
How many people have read it though?
This is 46 people on this app have marked that they've read it.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's worth checking. Maybe it's worth giving a better chance.
People said the first issue is the review for the first episode for the first issue is somebody said this was a fun story with great characters and the sisters and those who they encounter in their journey. It does not take itself seriously and just goes with the flow. The art was nice and clean, and both had both a touch of humor and heart.
Huh, mate. Well,
there's 10.
Maybe
there's only 10
we'll become.
Of these so far.
There's 10.
10 issues.
Maybe. So in the future, if you're wondering why this is called the Exorcisters podcast, you know that I read it and it was a good one. We'll see. We'll see.
To the Exorcisters and beyond. yeah, so let's get talking about the Beyond and talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We talked a good 10 minutes without mentioning the movie. So if you have not seen it, this is now your warning to not listen any further, because we're going to be talking full spoilers on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The movie is doing pretty well at the box office right now. It is projected right now to probably hit, well, Disney's saying between 170 $185 million opening weekend, and other insiders say it could probably reach 200 to 203 million opening weekend. Its cinema score was a B plus, which is actually low on the MCU things. They usually get A grades. Eternals got a B, Thor got a B plus, and Hulk got a B minus. I don't know if they mean Incredible Hulk or Ang Lee's. It just says Hulk. But yeah. So we'll see how it goes there. Internationally, it's doing very well as well. It could have like a 400 opening weekend when you add in international. So pretty big weekend for Doctor Strange. And again, this is your last warning for spoilers before we go. So
Turn back
3,
now.
2, 1. Jack, we have mutants and the Fantastic Four in the MCU now. At least in one of the Earths.
In one multiverse, yeah.
But what was your initial thoughts on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness as a big Doctor Strange fan that you are? He's your favorite comic book hero, right?
Yes, he is. I'm wearing a vintage comic Doctor Strange shirt right now, with him on there. You know, got to represent him. Had to represent him at Free Comic Book Day. But first thoughts, it was amazing. I originally said it's a top 3 MCU movie. I might pull that back a little bit and say more top 5, maybe just outside of it, but it's definitely in the top 10. It's in the top 10 for sure. It felt like a comic book as a movie. It felt more like a comic book as a movie than any other past MCU project has. It's a brand new formula. It's something that we haven't seen before, and it just shows what happens when you give a director mostly free reign to do what they want in terms of style. You know, we saw it with James Gunn in the Guardians movies. We saw it with Taika Waititi and Thor Ragnarok, and from what it looks like what we'll see in Thor Love and Thunder. This is just what happens when you let directors with unique styles go all out. And I like it. It explored some of the weirder elements of Doctor Strange's comics. It had a lot of cool universe building details in there that some of them are like, can you miss it type stuff, but others are a lot bigger. And it wasted no time defining the heroes and villains of this story, which, honestly, if there's one complaint I have about a lot of Marvel movies, is that sometimes they like mess around like, ooh, who's the villain? Are you going to be able to guess it? Who's the villain? And then you don't find out until like halfway through. And then you're like, well, I'm not sure how to develop any care for their like story or anything like that. And finally, my final first thought is that the cameos were used perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. I would not change a single thing about how they were used.
So I would disagree on a couple of those points. The main point I would disagree on is that this is the most comic booky of the movies. I think it is the most Doctor Strange comics of these, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think probably like Infinity War and Endgame are really the most comic booky for me. Like Infinity War feels like if you open up a team up comic, that's what it feels like, where you're like, oh, you know, like especially when they're collecting everybody, you know, like Strange and was it Strange and Bruce Banner going to get Tony, like that is very like, I feel like I've read that in a comic book before. But I would say the only thing I'd say about the cameos until we get there is that I really wanted a little bit more stretching from Mr. Fantastic. I didn't get to see a lot of his powers at all. Like you see him stretch in to the scene, and that was it.
Yep.
And it's very brief.
Well, we see him stretch in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Turns him into
a much different way.
We'll talk about the cameos when we get there. But overall, for me, I really enjoyed it. I've seen it twice. I went Thursday night by myself, and on a whim. And then Friday, I'd already had my tickets, and I went with like my parents and my spouse, and they did not enjoy it as much as I did. So I can kind of see where people have some problems with it. I do want to say, for all the people saying this should have been rated R or it's too scary, I don't think so. I almost say this is like Stranger Things level of horror. Like it's not really gory. It's not really like the horror of it really comes from when like Wanda's chasing them. It's almost very slasher horror in that sense.
I will say with some of the gore, it walks kind of a tightrope between it. You know, like if you lean a little bit too far into it, you're falling into the R rating category. You know, like
I'm just saying, like, compare this to James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and night and day.
Okay, yeah, no,
it's night and day.
Yeah, no, if you compare it to that, no, it's definitely not R rated. But in comparison, like it feels, there's some scenes that feel like if that was like the whole movie, and a little like you turned it up from like a 9 to a 9.1, you feel like that R. And there's one scene in particular that I'm thinking about. That we'll talk about when we get to cameos. You can probably guess what I'm talking about, Jordan.
Yeah, probably. So best part of the movie for me is seeing the Oswald the Lucky Rabbit short on the kids' TV.
I saw that and I was like, oh my god, it's Oswald.
I was so amazed.
The first appearance of him in a Disney property since 2013.
Yeah, get a horse. Well, actually, no, he actually appeared in one of the Mickey Mouse shorts.
That's right. First big screen appearance. There we go.
Yeah, first big screen since 2013. He's my favorite. I love Oswald. I love that whole story between, Walt losing the rights to him, getting the rights back, all that kind of stuff. So seeing him like in the movie was fun, and they also watched Snow White at one point too, which I thought was an interesting choice. I'm not really sure why maybe because of the Wicked Witch, like the evil queen using witch powers. I don't know. I don't know why they chose. It was literally like the first short for Oswald is the one that they were playing. I don't know why they chose that, but I enjoy it. That maybe to show like
it's in the multiverse. Maybe this is the world where Mickey Mouse was created first. Yeah, Mickey Mouse was created first and got stolen away, and so now Oswald is the main character. That's what it is. That maybe that's my headcanon.
Headcanon. Yeah,
that's what it is. Yep.
Let's get to the plot, but first, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was directed by Sam Raimi, written by Michael Waldron, produced by Kevin Feige, stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Elizabeth Olsen, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Benedict Wong, Xochitl Gomez, Michael Stuhlbarg, and Rachel McAdams. The music by Danny Elfman. It released May 6th in the United States. And we'll get into it. So we start off with the America Chavez and the alternate universe Doctor Strange are chased by
Defender Strange,
demon. Yep, it's chased by a demon in space between universes while they're looking for the Book of Ashanti. This Strange is going to end up getting killed while he's trying to kill America, not the country, the person. And we have, him starting to say the same line that he says to Peter in No Way Home, right? About in the infinite of the multiverse, you're, pretty much that you're insignificant, right? And that's what he's saying to America, that like, to save everything else, I have to take your power, which means it's for the greater good, is pretty much what he's trying to get at. But he's going to get killed while he's giving this speech. And he actually stays alive enough to save America Chavez one last time, cutting her free of the monster and sending her into the 616. And he ends up in the 616 as well. And what do you think of opening right away into this? This is not how I thought this movie would open. Thought that was very interesting to kind of just like start right away in the multiverse.
I liked it. I liked it because for a few things. One, it starts off with action right away. I liked it for that. And, it's the title implies madness, right? So it subverts expectations a little bit, You're starting off right away with inside of the multiverse. And that's pretty good. I like that. I think, it works with how this movie ends up being paced and all of that.
Yeah, and then we then join Strange waking up from this, right? He thinks it's a dream, but we'll actually learn that dreams are views into the multiverses. And I like the establishing it now because you're going to get the dream walking later. So that links all of this stuff together, setting it up early, not just later on being like, oh yeah, this is how works. He's on his way to Christine's wedding, and we get Dr. West, who sits next to him from the original Doctor Strange film. He asks Strange if for sure that the way that they had defeated Thanos was the only way. And this makes me wonder how much the general public is aware of this stuff. I assume there's press releases or maybe interviews, sit-down interviews with journalists or whatever about what they did and everything. But it sounds like maybe they know that he did it the one way. Or, like they mention specifically that you gave the stone to Thanos. It's like they know that happened, even though they weren't there to see it. That happened on Titan. So it does make me curious on what exactly they know, how they let this information out, and why none of it is, ultimately classified information. I guess because it's not government related. I don't know. It's kind of strange that they can just know all this stuff.
My thinking is Tony Stark. It's Tony Stark probably. He seems like the kind of person who would just say all of this, or he wrote an autobiography, thinking he was like after Infinity War, thinking he was done with all of this kind of stuff. He writes an autobiography, and that's in it, like saying, yeah, there was this one way, and now I'm depressed because I lost my kind of son in Spider-Man, like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's got to be Tony Stark. That feels like it. Otherwise, it's just a press release and saying like, yeah, the wizard told us there was one way. I don't know.
Just picture them sitting down with like Anderson Cooper, like, this is what happened, man. Like this, or like a Dateline or 2020 special that they do or something.
Or Jimmy Fallon, and then he just cracks up in the middle of it. I could see it.
James Corden starts doing carpool
Oh.
karaoke.
Karaoke. Like they just finished they just finished singing like Back in Black or something like that. And he's like, so yeah, how did Thanos get the time stone? And they're like, well,
Doctor Strange gave it to him. He's like, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah. We're just creating a
That wasn't
headcanon for the universe.
That wasn't a
right now.
joke. It was that's
Yeah,
what he actually did.
That was not a joke, James. Good try.
But it is something to think about, right? Like how they get this information. If I'm Strange, I'm certainly not telling people it was the only way, right? Like you would just say Thanos snapped them and the other Avengers came back and fixed it. Like why would they need to know every single detail about this? But it sets up for a nice moment later because later on there will be another instance of it's the only way where it wasn't the only way, and makes you think: was there any other way for them to defeat Thanos then? Because if he's wrong about, Wong is even the one advocating for him to kill America Chavez, right? And Wong doesn't usually play that game. So it does make you wonder, could there have been another way? Because if, or whether he's, obviously Strange is looking at it a little differently. This situation is different than Thanos because Strange is actually looking in multiverses of every single combination of events, while this was more of a on a whim decision. But character growth for Strange. As he's talking to Christine, he hears a commotion outside and goes to look. And what I said here is I just love the vibe of this. I love him jumping, like putting the glass down, whipping off his cloak, jumping off the side of the building and saving civilians. This is something we don't see a lot lately. And I said it's very Sam Raimi from like Spider-Man 1 or 2 to see New York, lady pushing a baby, and boom, he saves her creatively too with some sort of like, was it a goblin head or something? It looked crazy. Like
I have no idea what it was.
Whatever that was.
It was something. I really liked it because that felt like straight out of a comic book. Like you could see that kind of thing. Like because Doctor Strange does do that in comic books. Like he'll be at like an event or something, and he'll be like, and he'll notice something, whip out a cloak, put it on, and go out to save the day. It felt that there's moments like that throughout this that make you feel like, there's comic book movies and there's movie comic books. I feel like this feel like it goes more towards the movie comic book type thing.
I think why it helps too is because we've never seen Strange this way. Like we've seen Strange in his origin film where he never had to do this. He was never at like a press event or a wedding or anything where he just able to, people need me. And then we see him when people seek him out at the sanctum. We see Bruce land in his sanctum. We see Peter go to his sanctum. We never, ever have seen and been able to follow Strange into something that he's doing, having him as the focus, where that's what it felt like. It felt really good to just be able to say, we're so used to seeing this guy, Thor, right, in the sanctum. We're so used to seeing this guy just in his sanctum all the time. It was nice to see him get out of there and just go to like a wedding. And then having that character moments and then being like, how do you go help right now? You don't have your suit. Well, I always have it, just bam, magic.
Yeah.
And, flying down and helping civilians and then, ending up helping a little girl, who's on the run.
I also just thought of something. The wedding introduces a prominent theme throughout this movie as well, which I thought was really good because they made a movie about the multiverse less complex by introducing the same question throughout it.
Are you
question,
happy?
Yeah, exactly. Are you happy? And seems like a simple question, but throughout every universe, we see that question get answered in different ways. And I really liked that. I thought like some people have complained about this movie like being called Multiverse of Madness, and they're like, oh, there's not enough universes that we saw. And I was like, that's fine though. Like this is still like early in the multiverse kind of. I like the multiverse idea in the MCU, right? Like we've gotten a little bit more of it each time.
Isn't the madness Wanda?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I
that's
think.
what it is. It doesn't mean we go to 100. It means that she's seeking them across. It's Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness, and the madness is Wanda's multiverse where she's trying to get to her kids. Like that's how I read it. And I think part of the problem part of the problem is that this name is handed to them by Marvel, right? This was the name even before Scott Derrickson steps down. So I think if Raimi or Waldron had control, it's probably called something different, right? Because they would probably retrofit it a little bit more to what they want to explore, like Doctor Strange. Are you happy? No. But something like something different, maybe. I don't know. But that's kind of like the downside with this is where when they announce these things so far in advance, they get the title ready first, right? They already know what plot they want to hit, but usually the script's not written at that point. And then when you even have like a change in leadership, I doubt Marvel wants to change the name after they already announced it. So that's where they can kind of run into problems. But I think his title, the madness is Wanda, right? She goes mad, not madness of like, this is crazy multiverse, but the going mad and losing herself in the Darkhold and trying to find her family.
Yeah, I think like it's especially, and given that it's so early for multiverse stuff, I think it's fine that they only explore, let's see, like in-depth explore 3.5 universes, because if you consider the place between universes its own place, then I guess 4, but otherwise 3.5, I guess, and then all of the universes they crash through as well. So, I think it's a good amount for an early movie like this, because like if you explore so many universes so early on, then there's no plot to follow. You just end up with a mash of cameos in different universes with different Easter eggs, and then you have no plot for the actual movie. Like I thought they did well in making a movie about the multiverse, simplified while also complex. If that makes sense. It's simple yet complex.
Yeah, this is again where Marvel gets himself in trouble, and what I mean by that is announcing everything ahead of time. It can be a detriment, and this is where it can be a detriment. Is they announce WandaVision, right? They then announce that Wanda's going to be in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. They announce No Way Home, and people, Jamie Foxx, they start announcing Jamie Foxx, they start announcing Alfred Molina, right? And then they start, people start putting these pieces together. They feel like they have the puzzle pieces, but what they're doing is they're putting them together incorrectly. And then when stuff like Ralph Boner comes up, right? Mm-hmm. When we're getting Quicksilver from the X-Men films, people think that they have a puzzle piece and they're putting it a certain way, but they're putting it in wrong. What I mean by that is people are like, Wanda's going to mess up the multiverse and it's going to bring in Quicksilver, and then it's going to bring in the X-Men, and then Doctor Strange is going to have to fix it, right? Because, and then they announced Loki too, right? And then Loki is all about how he is in the multiverse, right? So people are like, well, then after WandaVision, Loki is going to be mixed up with this stuff, and then Doctor Strange is going to have to fix it. And you get all those memes where they show like Spider-Man, Loki, and Wanda, and then you have like Doctor Strange like visibly frustrated, and it's like, I gotta clean this up. But that's not even what the plot is. That's not even what they're going for. You know, like everybody looks at the Spider-Man villains then and starts saying, oh, Spider-Man's gonna F up the multiverse somehow, or Wanda messes it. And then when Wanda doesn't mess it up, they're like, Loki's gonna mess up this multiverse, and then Loki doesn't mess it up. And then they're like, this Spider-Man spell is going to mess it up. And then it didn't mess it up. And then you get to this movie. And what I'm getting at is, yes, the MCU is connected. But it doesn't mean that it's this domino effect for every single project. Wanda had very little to do with the multiverse in WandaVision. Right? We get Ralph Boner. That's it. And he's not even multiverse. That upset some people because they felt misled. Right? Then you get Loki, which starts the multiverse by killing He Who Remains. And that's actually a Sylvie thing. It's not even Loki, right? But, then you get He Who Remains dying, and it unleashes the multiverse. And then you have Spider-Man, which now that the multiverse is able to exist and the TVA doesn't exist, right? You can have the variants. And they come in because you're messing with the spell while Doctor Strange is talking. Then that gets resolved. This is not residual to this. Like everybody kept thinking this was going to be some sort of like residual effect of messing with the multiverse. This isn't the case. The case here is that America Chavez, who can leap through multiverses, is being hunted by Wanda because at the end of WandaVision, she found out her kids are existing in other multiverses. Boom. Like this stuff still makes sense, but people really, like, I don't know for how long, these 2 years or the year that WandaVision has been out, or before WandaVision had come out, people said this is going to be the start of the multiverse and Wanda's going to F it up. And then that didn't happen. And then they move it to the next person. Then they move it to the next person. And guess what? This is resolved here. There's no more multiverse to mess up right now. The door is closed right now unless America Chavez decides to punch it open. So again, there isn't like this multiversal saga is going to be very different than what from in the Infinity Saga. So a long roundabout way of saying is stop over theorizing. Is pretty much what I'm getting at, because we know Marvel likes to resolve their stories in each story that they tell. Meaning that there's going to be little nuggets that are going to carry over to each thing. But it's not like WandaVision is going to blow open the multiverse in WandaVision and then everybody's dealing with fallout from that. It's going to resolve her character there. It's going to resolve Loki's and his, blah, 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 onward and onward. But just frustrated. All those memes really pissed me off because I'm like, you guys don't even know what this story is yet. Stop acting like this is... Of course, especially when we started knowing America Chavez was going to be at it. I'm like, she can literally just punch through the walls. It has nothing to do with Spider-Man or Wanda messing with anything. Rant over.
Yeah, there's a lot of directions that this movie could have gone, and the sad thing with over theorizing is that when it didn't go the direction that people thought it was going to go, or they made it, they had convinced themselves it would go based on their theories, they got upset, which is dumb.
Yes. This was, I actually forgot my whole point. This was part of my point is that the cameos, right? Like when we get to them, people ultimately were upset because we didn't get Tom Cruise Iron Man. He was never confirmed. We let leakers just spread all this BS. And then when it doesn't turn out, we're like, oh, well, it didn't have all those cameos they said. Yeah, I'd rather Doctor Strange have an actual arc in his movie than just going through each multiverse seeing, oh, look, here's a different Iron Man. Oh, here's a different Black Panther. Like, yes, that's what If is for. That is what, we got to see 838 in this universe, and that's all we really needed to see.
Well, and also that end universe that was destroyed pretty much. But,
Yeah.
there was that. But I was gonna say this till we got to the camp, but I'll bring it up here. People have also been complaining about, like, either we didn't get enough cameo or the cameo characters did nothing. And good. They weren't supposed to do anything. They were literally the whole point of the cameos in this, the Illuminati. That if you already know this is a spoiler review, so I'm not gonna to beat around the bush with it.
No,
the Illuminati in this. They were never going to live through this. That's not the point. That wasn't the point of them. They were plot points to show Wanda's power and to make her into a real threat and a real villain. They gathered Strawn and some of the smartest people, and she just got to pulverize them to add to the stakes and to make her feel like a real villain. That was good.
It also further Strange's growth, right?
Yeah.
We keep getting told moment by moment that every Strange is the same. They're always going after power. They always get corrupted by the Darkhold. Ours does not. Debatable on the corruption, right? But he is not one that decides to kill America Chavez. He says there's another way.
Mm-hmm.
This growth, before he was so rigid in Infinity War, this is the only way. This is the only way we can do this. In this, we see his other Doctor Strange try to kill America Chavez. We see them talk about how their Doctor Strange got corrupted by the Darkhold and caused an incursion. We then get to the other Doctor Strange in the Sanctum, right? Who is corrupted as well. And you're constantly being told, and by Rachel McAdams' character, Christine, you guys are all the same. And he kind of brushes that aside at that point. He's like, yeah, whatever, I am, but I need to go help this kid. And really that shows to me he's not the same, right? The fact that he's able to put it aside right there and say, yes, I am the same, whatever, but I need to get back and help this kid proves to me that he's not the same. He's not saying I have to help this kid to save the multiverse. He says I have to stop her from killing America Chavez, right? His goal is to save a life. It is not just about preventing the multiverse from being controlled by Wanda. It is about saving a girl that he has come to grow to like hanging around her. She's charismatic as hell. I really liked Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez, by the way.
I've seen some people.
I saw some people giving her some crap, and it whatever. But my point being is that the Illuminati is part of that Strange growth as well. They say, you know what? You're telling us this Wanda thing? We can handle her. We defeated Thanos, right? But we don't trust you, man, because you were our founder and you betrayed us and you tried to tap into the Darkhold and you did all this stuff because you thought it was the only way. Again, it's leaning back to a Strange being set in his ways, as Christine says, needing to be the one to hold the knife. He gives that up when he has America defeat Wanda. He gives up holding the knife. And all of this is built up from that. So to say they did nothing is, I think, a little harsh. What people are upset about is that Reed Richards didn't outsmart Wanda and wrap around her, and Black Bolt didn't kill her, and Charles Xavier dies like a chump. That's what people are upset about, but that doesn't matter. That's not like these cameos were to further Strange and Wanda, and it's to show you what Strange is capable of, right? And also to show you what Wanda is capable of in a whole different way. But they're there not just as plot points. They do have good conversations that help further the growth of the characters. And I just get upset when people keep saying that they're just, wasted cameos.
No, they're not. And Also, continue on my rant about cameos. The people who were saying, Strange has absolutely no growth because he used the Darkhold anyway. Did you stop watching the movie for the last 20 minutes? I I don't mean to sound weird, but I also kind of do, because he does grow. The reason for him using it is because quite literally there is no other way for him to get back to that universe. He does it, but then once he gets there, he steps back and he's like, I don't need to do this myself. Other people are capable, and that's growth. But on the cameos, I had a feeling that when they announced the Illuminati, they were all going to get folded by the end of this. They didn't stand a chance, because I just felt like it was coming, because they built them up as like, the most powerful or greatest minds in this universe, right? And it felt like that is the perfect way to showcase the power of whoever the villain was. Like, even if it wasn't Wanda, it, like, in the trailers, there was no indication that she was the villain. But if, like, whoever the villain was, they were going to serve as a foil for it, like to showcase the power of that villain and to do this. And they did that well. And also, so many people seem to miss that these are not the same characters as the ones in 616. The amount of people I have seen saying, oh, they just killed off these characters and now they're gone. No, they didn't. Please stop. Please, they're variants. They are variants. You miss the entire point of the multiverse. They're in their own universe. And also, for
Christine
everyone saying,
spells it out. She says, this is 838. Yeah. You're from 616.
Yeah. And for people who are like, but Reed Richards is the smartest person in our universe. He is one of the smartest people in the universe. In our universe.
Well, they mentioned that in
sure.
this one too. They, Mordo, right? When he introduces him, says the smartest man alive.
But
the issue is Wanda is not as strong as our Wanda, right? So they're not concerned.
Yeah. and also they
probably know her.
They're high on themselves. They're a little cocky. They're a little high on themselves. They're like, yeah, we're the Illuminati. We killed Thanos. We defeated Doctor Strange after he got corrupted by the Darkhold. We're righteous. We're good. And that sort of complex gets to them, and that's why people were like, why does Reed Richards say Black Bolt could kill you with one whisper from his mouth? That's a valid complaint right there. That piece of dialogue could kill you with one whisper from his mouth. That dialogue was a little rocky. You just said one whisper and it would have been fine. But that's a valid complaint. That's true. Yeah, but
then you wouldn't be able to say what whisper, right? You have to be able to give her the tee up
with
of
what mouth, right? Yeah, that's true. But
so that's the only way
like the reason they say that isn't because like Reed Richards is dumb. It's because he underestimates Wanda. Like they don't believe that Strange when he said that Wanda is the Scarlet Witch, that she has the Darkhold and all those powers, right? They don't believe him. They're like,
it's not just underestimating, it's trying to reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't try us, Wanda. This guy can kill you with a whisper. Like, you're done.
But they don't know she can bend reality at this point.
Right.
And
but he's he's told her they're the Scarlet Witch. And
they don't trust him though, right? Like
they don't trust him.
So they have no reason to actually believe like this is a real threat. And Reed Richards gets turned to string cheese. Black Bolt becomes a day-old jack-o'-lantern. That's the scene, by the way, that I'm like, this is very close. If they turn this up a little bit,
was the most rough for her.
There's like a little bit of brain leaking out of his ear and on that, and his entire skull like deflates, and it's like it's a little gruesome. I also people hate Captain Carter. People hate Haley Atwell for some reason, I've noticed in Marvel fan
here's
TikTok.
The thing that I see with that, right? I see it on Twitter all the time. people complaining that she's taking spotlight off of Captain America Sam, and that Marvel is racist because they're having this white lady be Captain Carter instead of showing Sam. This is totally different universe. This is totally different. Why can't we just... Why... It's annoying. It's annoying because they've already committed to Sam as Cap, so you can't give them any crap about that. They're committed to it. Falcon and Winter Soldier was just last year. They're starting to work on Captain America 4 with him as the star. Peggy doesn't have a show. She shows up in this 5-minute cameo, and she was in What If for a couple episodes. Like, it's not even comparable on which one is more popular. It's Sam. This is just a fun little thing. People can't have fun anymore without thinking that every single... We talked about this before, Jack, but people are so upset about the end credit scene, right? We don't need a setup for every project anymore. It made more sense in phase 1 because we went a year or so between projects. We have 2 months before Thor: Love and Thunder. There's no reason to tease
1 month
that.
until Miss Marvel.
1 month until Miss Marvel. There's no reason to tease any of that stuff. We already have trailers. What else are we going to tease? You know, a lot of these projects are so separate now. Miss Marvel is not anywhere. I mean, not Miss Marvel. The Marvels is not anywhere in the same realm as Doctor Strange. Quantumania is in a whole different area of what they're doing. There's no reason to have a tease for something if there's no tease. The tease is the mid-credit scene most of the time now, and the end credit scene is usually the funny thing now. Just get used to it. That's what it is now. I mean, we have to adjust our expectations.
I like the end credit scenes being a little funny. At first I was a little disappointed, but I was like, I read up on it. Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi. It's an iconic combo. You can't have one without the
almost
other.
every movie of his. I mean, he's in the Spider-Man films with them, Army of the, like what, and all of them. Right.
It had to be, and also like, the Hawkeye end credit scene. Every time I watch it again, it's funny. It's great, because people, you got to remember, because this goes with the over theorizing anyway. Because people were over theorizing about the end credit scenes as well, and like being like, oh, it's going to be Kingpin showing up, and he's gonna be fine, and like he's going to be running a crime syndicate, and it's going to introduce Daredevil officially to the MC. And I was like, actually, remember like in week 1 where you're like, I would love a full version of this song from Rogers the Musical.
Yes,
well, they gave it to you, but over theorizing.
And guess what? It's either that or you don't get a scene.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, pick one. But over theorizing has people have over theorized projects into oblivion. WandaVision was one of those. It was the first MCU show, so kind of understandable. Every single week, people were convinced that, oh, I saw a fly for 1 second. That means Mephisto. And everyone just kind of went along with it. and all of a sudden, everyone became an expert in the comics overnight.
Most of those people still haven't read any, by the way.
Yeah,
they just look at Wikipedia.
I started to read them to get into that a little bit, but it's like, and Hawkeye's finale too. People being like, oh, we saw this scene in Spider-Man, like this area, so he's gonna be in it.
Spider-Man shows up, even though he has no reason to.
Yeah, like, yeah, sure, he's gonna show up to the street level villain fight that like has no stakes whatsoever. And
I mean, he is a street level guy, but
yeah,
the issue is that
he's studying to get his GED. He's studying to get his GED.
It takes away from Clint's growth if Spider-Man swoops in and defeats him for him.
Not every scene needs a cameo. It doesn't need to happen. So I'm a huge Doctor Strange fan, and I was super worried when people were like, oh, Wolverine's going to be in it, Deadpool's going to be in it, Superior Iron Man's going to be in it. All of these people be in it, and they're going to have big parts in the movie.
because of Raimi was going to be in it. And I'm like, there's no way he fits in here. What do you do with him?
and I was like, this could make this movie terrible. Like if all of these cameos are in there, and even when they're like, oh, we're doing reshoots to have cameos, I was like, it turned out to be fine, luckily. Yeah. But if it was all those cameos, you don't have a Doctor Strange movie. You don't have a movie about him anymore. And people are already complaining that people are already complaining that you have a clip show. You have a clip show.
Yeah.
Exactly. But people are already complaining that this isn't enough of a Doctor Strange movie. Can you imagine if they had like even double the amount of cameos? It would have been awful. It would have been bad. It would have been a monstrosity. It wouldn't have worked. So I'm glad that the cameos were used the way they were. And although I'm going to say this because it's true, the only cameo that matters anyway is Clea. That's it. That's the only cameo that matters.
Yeah, that was we'll get to that at the end. Sorry, we're jumping all over the place here.
I feel like at this point we ditch talking about the plot in depth and just go through
I think so.
So the main part.
Let's go to they make Wanda the villain, blah blah blah. Okay, cameos, right? I want to stick on this since we're on it. Krasinski as Reed Richards. Mm-hmm. This was great because the Fantastic Four are really the ones that started the 616 in the comics, right? They kicked off the Marvel 616. They're the first family of Marvel. They kind of start out, I mean, like when Spider-Man gets created, he goes and tries to join the Fantastic Four. We had two previous versions that were not up to big quality, right? A lot of people don't like either. You just talked last week, I think, about Fantastic Four, Miles Teller version, right?
Yeah.
When I got home last night, started watching the 2005 one for a bit because I needed my fix.
Oh, thank you. I thought you were going to say the 2015 one.
No.
And I was worried.
I don't know if I'll ever watch it. But
don't.
What I liked about having just a member of Fantastic Four, I had to explain this to my wife because she hasn't seen any of these movies for Fantastic Four. And she says, I was explaining to her about Krasinski and stuff like that. And she said, oh, so he wasn't in any of the movies before for like a different iteration? And I said, no, this was like entirely just because of the popularity of people fan casting him as a Reed Richards that they got him in here to do it. And while some people might not be able to connect to him then since they've never seen him before, people may not care that he gets killed. I get that. But as a Fantastic Four fan, I'm just excited to see that when they announced that they were buying Fox, my first thoughts were, all right, let's get Fantastic Four and X-Men in the MCU like as soon as possible. And we've really been dragging our feet on it because they already had so many projects planned before that. There was, they didn't want to rush it. And we just got, the news of John Watts stepping down from Fantastic Four. I love the suit he wears. It's very classic Fantastic Four. It's got the great logo, really great Fantastic Four logo. Do you think he comes back as Reed in Fantastic Four? Because I have it going both ways here, and I'll explain, right? They could be setting this up because, all right, Black Bolt was played by Anson Mount, who was in Inhumans, right? Maria Rambeau was played by Lashana Lynch, who is Maria Rambeau in Captain Marvel. Peggy Carter was played by Haley Atwell, just like she was in the Captain America movies. So Mordo was played by, Ejiofor, who was also in the Doctor Strange movies. So you would see that most likely this is supposed to be close to our universe. So that means that Krasinski should be Reed Richards. But I think since this was a popular fan cast, I almost think Marvel could say, you guys got what you wanted. He was Reed Richards. And we're going to this allows us to go our own way now. We hired him. You got to see him. He got to do it. Great. But we want to go younger or we want to do different. You still got what you wanted. You know, like a fun little just fan thing. You guys made this happen. Here he is. He's great. But we really want to go with somebody else. So we're going to hire somebody else. I could see it going both ways. And I would almost think I'm leaning more towards he will not appear as Reed again. Because a lot of the appeal people wanted for Reed was him as Reed and his wife, Emily Blunt, as Invisible Woman. She says she's not as interested in doing Marvel films, though she originally was trying to get the Black Widow job. So who knows, right? Because they're married in real life, people really started putting them as Sue Storm and Reed Richards. So I want to get your thoughts here on if you think he's coming back as him, and I guess just overall what you thought of his performance.
I hope he comes back because I liked his performance. I thought it was good for what it was. It's a different type of Reed Richards than what we've gotten before, and I like that. I know of another popular fan theory is that Glenn Howerton as Reed Richards that's what it's going to be. I almost think he would make a decent Johnny Storm. I could see that, but I think I like Krasinski as Reed Richards. I'd like to see what he can do in like actually given a more than 5 minutes and being turned to string cheese to see what he can do in that role, because I thought he fits the character well. He looks like Mr. Fantastic, so that's good. And I think he has like the right sort of vibe to him to be, you know, like that. I feel like it fits. I think it fits well, and it also seems weird for Marvel to put this there and then be like, gotcha, psych, you know, like all of a sudden. But you know, given Loki, we've seen that variants can look different, so could happen. But I hope it is. I want to see him in the role.
Because my thoughts is they might want to go younger, right? I mean, he mentions how he's already got a kid. That's references to Franklin and his daughter with Sue. It depends on what they want to do with it. Do they want to have them be young? So that way they can, like, because here's the thing I worry about with Krasinski. Is he going to want to do this for, he's talked about being okay and wanting to do this, but he's also got an Amazon show, right? He's got directing for Quiet Place 3, I guess. Like, he's got stuff he's doing that I don't know if he's going to be able to be locked down for like 10 years, right? Which ideally you would want Mr. Fantastic locked down for even more than 10 years, you know? You would want him as one of your cornerstones, you know, going forward, because not only are they Marvel's first family, but most of the big cosmic villains that we have left come from their line of characters. Kang, you know, so maybe they'll show up in Ant-Man. We have Kang, Galactus. You know, Silver Surfer can appear at some point. Some of the Kree Skrulls that they faced, like Super Skrull, I think. There's a whole bunch of characters coming. Doctor Doom, of course. There are so many characters coming from that line of them that I feel like, you know, Krasinski's how old? 40s?
I think so.
He's 42. So, I mean, of course, you know, Robert Downey started at 42, but ideally you want him longer than you had Downey. That's what I would look at.
I think it can work well enough. I want to see him in it, you know. Yeah, I want to see him in it. I think he fits incredibly well with it. And
because what you were saying about how the other ones were actors we've had, there's no way Patrick Stewart is playing Charles Xavier again in the MCU.
No.
He wanted Logan to be the last one. He thankfully came back for this, but I guess you could say, well, whoever they cast turns into Patrick Stewart, right? Like you could do something like that. That was another rumor too, is that they were going to have Michael Fassbender for Magneto in this as part of the Illuminati. That was wrong. But yeah, so moving on from Reed though, but I just we'll see what they do. I'm assuming we'll get news on this kind of stuff within the year or so because they're for a 2024 release. So I mean, hopefully we start learning on that.
Yeah.
We got
I want to know who is playing the rest of the Fantastic Four members as well.
Yes, Chris Evans is Johnny Storm. Make his appearance again. Whoever it is will be the third Johnny Storm in the MCU though, so that's interesting because we have Chris Evans as Cap, Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger, so it'll be funny. Anson Mount is Black Bolt, so he comes from the Inhuman show. Much better, much more accurate comic book look with the fork on his head, as Strange says. We just mentioned him. We got Charles Xavier. Does that mean all the X-Men exist in this universe? I assume so, right? I don't know. Does
Not
it not
necessarily. I mean, they may have existed, but they might not all be alive, But yeah, they probably do. But who until we know which X-Men are in the MCU, there's not really a foundation to say it. But what we can say is that Charles Xavier either exists or has existed in Earth 616 for the MCU, because for there to be a variant of him, he had to have existed.
Yeah, maybe. Right? Because, I mean, 616 is not like the main, it's our main universe, but it is not like he could exist in one and not exist in the other. Wouldn't you think?
Maybe, although I guess so, especially given Wanda's kids, which brief side note, I just think it's funny that after Wanda says all of this, Doctor Strange's response to her talking about her kids is basically a Twitter comment that says L plus ratio plus your kids aren't real. That's the equivalent of what he said to her. But they don't. We know that they exist in almost literally every universe except for 616.
Mm-hmm.
So, or maybe they will exist at one point or another. But that. So I guess you're right that he doesn't necessarily have to exist in every universe.
But I think he does anyway, because I don't think they would have him here if he's not going to be introduced soon. I do think we get a younger version of him, though, that we can maybe conceivably says grows into Patrick Stewart. We just may never see that. But I love the X-Men theme song playing when he comes in. That was cool. Which now it makes everybody think X-Men 97 is tying in to this, and that he's going to get his blown brain off by Wanda now, or his head neck snapped.
No,
that would be a disappointing end for the cartoon.
We need to stop with the over theorizing. Cut it off before it gets too bad.
It's the same thing with What If, right? Everybody thought we were going to see Strange Supreme in this. No, it's a very similar type thing, but it's not Strange Supreme. Captain Carter. This is definitely not our Captain Carter from What If, right? Because if so, she's dead, and that's disappointing. But I assume it's not, because remember she got her universe had multiple people that we know in it, and it seems like it seems like maybe Iron Man never existed as Iron Man in the 838. I don't know. It's really tough to know, right? Now they say Peggy was the first Avenger, so we do know Avengers existed in 838. But some people think that the Illuminati is all that existed, and that's not the case. So people saying like that world is effed are wrong, because they should still have Avengers, right? They just don't have an Illuminati anymore.
Which I'm guessing the people that ordinary people aren't supposed to know about them existing, are they? So
right, exactly.
I think the world goes on as normal in that case.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. Then we had Captain Marvel. This was Maria Rambeau, the mother of Monica Rambeau, who Wanda's very familiar with. Just a cool nod to her being a Captain Marvel in the comics. To me, she felt a little underpowered. We saw Captain Marvel like rip through the spaceship of Thanos and like take out so many people, and then she couldn't do anything really against Wanda. Like Wanda didn't even really struggle with her.
Well, remember, we do know she did struggle a little bit, because she was getting hit. Like Maria is the one that lasts the longest against her. Like, yeah,
but she was gone for a while. She got blown through the wall and only comes back when Carter is dead,
I guess. But you have to remember, Captain Marvel, yes, she blasts through the ship in Endgame, but Wanda is in that form, like right after being blipped back in, right? Almost beats Thanos, and the only reason she doesn't is because he instructs his entire armada of ships to fire on her. And because of that, she has the Darkhold in this now. She's fully powered. Yeah. Like this is the peak of her powers. So I think like Captain Marvel is strong, but Wanda with Darkhold is stronger. And it makes sense if you think about the sequencing of matchups like that, I guess. At least it's more accurate of a ranking than the power rankings are for sports. So
yeah.
Had to find a way to slate those.
Well, what's funny is that this one Marvel podcast I was listening to said that they do power rankings for the heroes, and I think that'd be fun to do one time. Like who can be
as tiers, I think, as tiers. If you do an actual
we could probably do that,
numeric ranking, as a numeric ranking, I think it's always be a long difficult. One, yeah. But in tiers, you could do it in tiers.
I think instead of Captain Marvel, we probably get T'Challa if Chadwick Boseman was alive. Maybe he's a very prominent member of the Illuminati.
Yeah. I'm glad that wasn't, though, because like they could have done like a variant, right? They could have
done Killmonger or something. Yeah.
Or T'Chaka.
That's
right?
true. Just
they could
60-year-old guy. Well, I mean, they have Patrick Stewart there, but he uses his mind.
Yeah. They could have theoretically done it. I like having Maria Rambeau, though. I think that's a cool little detail.
So I have a question. Can we get more 838 in What If season 2? Because I really want to see like their version of Infinity War, or some more of that universe, because I think it's like really the only other one we have numbered, and I think it'd be cool to kind of explore more of that.
Yeah, I don't know, because like we know how their Infinity War ends up. We know they all defeat Thanos together, right? Like the Illuminati defeat him.
Yeah, but I want to see if like the Avengers face them too, or if it's just the Illuminati.
I have a feeling we're not going to get that. I have a feeling we're not going to. But however they did it, it was brutal, because you can see in that scene impaled. Where they literally impale him with his own aid. Like it seems pretty brutal. Like they definitely They didn't snap him away, that's for sure. So I don't know, it could be an intriguing thing, but what I would like to do is for what if episodes in season 2, they number the universes. Like, I don't care if it's a random number generator and you just generate a random number for it. It would add more texture to the world and like make it feel more connected to the MCU.
They probably won't, just because it locks them in. Because originally this universe was like the 199999 universe, but now it's the 616. The 616 is just a fun nod to the comics. It doesn't mean that it is now the 616. It's the cinematic 616.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a difference. Okay, so those are the cameos that we had. We get another version of Christine Palmer in this, where she's an Illuminati scientist. And then we have Wanda, after she kills all of them, chasing them down. This is probably the most horror-esque, like the tunnel scene, right? Really felt very like slasher. Is he still behind us? That type of thing. But we get more dream walking, where you're gonna get strange dream walking into the zombie, right? Defender Strange one. What was your thoughts on the zombies? My wife just a few times after we left the movie was like, that was some funky prosthetics. Like, she said that like 5 times. I was like, she can't for that, I guess. I don't know. But it was I'm not big zombies. I mean, I watched Walking Dead. I've played Walking Dead. I've read some of the comics. Those are fine. But like, seeing our hero as a zombie was a little off-putting for me. But especially the demon things. But, that's very Doctor Strange, I guess.
I like it. And actually, I was going to note that because I have like a page on just Doctor Strange's character in this. And one of the things I noted is, for one of the first times, it feels like we actually see Doctor Strange, like the comics, he has a ton of wit and quick thinking to outsmart his enemies and to get out of situations. Using the demons as a cloak was like, feels like comic book Strange. That's what it felt like right there. And I loved that. I thought the zombie thing was cool. It also felt very comic book like. It feels like something that Doctor Strange would use to get out of a situation in the comics. And I also think, like, it looked creepy, and I'm fine with it. I didn't think the prosthetics were necessarily bad. It looked...
No, I don't think she thought they were bad. I think she just, like, with the teeth, being able to see the teeth, I think she was a little off-put by that.
I will say it looks very close to Zombie Strange from What If. Like, he is missing part of his mouth in the What If series, like when we see the version of him. So I think it matches up with that pretty well. So, I'm all right with that. I'm all right with it. I thought it was just quick thinking, and oh man, the demon cloak thing was cool. But before that, my new favorite fight scene in the MCU, although the Ant-Man fight scene, the final scene in like with the toys and everything, that comes close. But
the music fight,
oh my god, that was beautiful. And another instance of like the quick wit thing, where like, Strange is in the battle. Like I could like hear the comic dialogue in my head. Like I'm locked in a battle of magic with my alternate sorcerer. But if I can't break away, for he'll destroy me. And then he looks over and sees the harp, and then I'm like, it's perfect. Some people called it cheesy. I think it's comic book cheesy.
I think
that's
the
good.
cheesiness comes from the slow-mo, right? Like, I don't know if people would give it as much dick as they are if it didn't have the slow-mo of Strange getting like boom, 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 like, but what I liked about it too is that this ties into his character as well. You know, we start off the Strange movie in 2016 with him guessing songs, right? With him being aware of music and being a music lover. So I do think that this is something that ties in with that.
That reminds me. When he sees Reed Richards for the first time. So
yes,
he says to him, "Didn't you chart in the 60s?" People were over theorizing came into play for a second here, and people were like, "Oh, that means the Fantastic Four are caught in the 60s and they're like stuck in time."
Well, I thought about that too because I didn't hear the joke. I didn't hear what he said. Like my first showing, the sound was not as showing. So my first showing, different theater, I didn't hear what he said about the 60s. I just heard him name drop the 60s. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting because I knew that there was plans before for Peyton Reed. His pitch to Marvel was let's have them start in the 60s, kind of go in space when they come back. They're like in the present day or, whatever.
Yeah.
But he's saying, did you chart in the 60s? It's a Fab Four reference for the Beatles. Yeah.
No, there's actually a band called Fantastic Four that charted in the 60s.
Is it really?
In Doctor Strange, when he's in the operating room, he would tell them when songs chart. So that's just a call.
Detroit band.
That. That's a callback to the first Doctor Strange movie. And see, there's like I didn't even realize that until I saw a clip of it afterwards. And then pointed that out. And I was like, it's pretty cool. It could be a Beatles reference for all we know.
Most people think it's a Beatles reference.
It's a reference to something.
Because Maria, asked if he's joking. But this makes more sense because they were active in 65 to 2000. Oh my God, they were active till 2000.
I know when I looked that up, it's crazy. But that's like a cool little detail, that's the danger of over theorizing. People heard that and self-confirmed things for themselves when in reality it's just a callback joke. That's what it is.
Yep.
Or at least as far as we know, that's what it is. That's what I'm gonna think of it as, because I know if I over theorize and I'm wrong, it's gonna make it feel disappointing. And I don't like that. So I learned my lesson with WandaVision.
People can over theorize, but the thing is, don't get attached. Right?
Acknowledge that you're probably wrong.
Right. Or don't get so attached to your idea that when it doesn't happen, you hate whatever they do. I've over theorized on a bunch of stuff in this, but I usually then when I go into the theater try to let go of those theories and enjoy, and just kind of take the movie for what it is. And sometimes that is disappointing the first viewing, but when you go into the second or third viewing and you already know what happens, you're kind of putting to rest any of those other theories you had or anything like that. And you're able to kind of judge the movie on a much more like my thoughts on Reed Richards changed from the first to the second one. The first viewing, I was excited to see him, but I thought Krasinski was a little too soft-spoken. I now think that may have just been my theater being a little lower on the volume because I could hear everything he said much clearer the second time, and I thought his performance was better the second time. But I think also part of it was that first time I was watching it, I was nervous of, okay, everybody's been wanting him. Here he is. Can he do it? Type of thing. And you're judging him every time he comes on, like, is this Reed or not? The second time you already know how it goes, and I'm able to sit there. I'm like, oh, no, he did very well as Reed. So, fine, whatever, But, again, when you over-theorize, don't get attached. Don't be like, it has to happen this way or else I don't like the outcome. Because that's what happens when you get attached to your own idea. I don't care how they introduce Fantastic Four. If they do, I actually don't want them to do it the 60s way because I'd rather them just come in now because started having this a lot now, like the Captain Marvel issue, right? Of Well, they've always been there. We just never talked about them. And if that's what they're going to do with X-Men as well, I don't want them to do it for Fantastic Four. Like, I'd rather have one of them get introduced nowadays. And it's easier for the Fantastic Four to get introduced nowadays than it is for the X-Men, because X-Men are mutants. There's a mutant gene. So I feel like those would obviously be the ones that were in hiding and around longer than the Fantastic Four. So I don't want them to reuse the same stuff. But we get America Chavez, training at Carmitage, and then
Carmitage, yeah.
We also get the very end, Strange with the third eye, showing he's corrupted by the Darkhold. But I guess going back to America Chavez, is she going to become a sorceress, or is she how long does she stay there? She has no. I was kind of hoping we would see her parents at some point in this, but I don't know. I'm really interested in where we see her next.
We kind of see her parents.
Well, I meant like her finding them.
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm glad that we didn't, because they're saving that for a future story arc. I think like that can happen in the future, which is good. Give her a reason to come back to things. I think what they're going to do is, she's going to become a sorceress, and she's going to have this multiversal power, and so they're going to make Young Avengers at some point in time. There's no way they're not. They've set it up way too much at this point. If they don't, it's more surprising. Already know that we're going to get Stature in the next Ant-Man movie. We know that's been confirmed for us. We have Kate Bishop. We have at least versions of Wiccan and Speed. We have that in some universe. They're probably going to be in this at some other part. We know Riri Williams from Ironheart. She's going to be in there. We have Eli Bradley. It's happening eventually. So I think that they're going to add to her power set in that way. That she's going to be a magic user. She's going to kind of be like the Doctor Strange type character of that group, I think. That's what I see this kind of being.
That'd be interesting. What I like too is when she did the fist thing before she punched.
Yeah.
That is I think one of the covers of her comics, or I've seen her do that before. So, they nailed that, that look. Yeah, there it is. It's a front cover of. I on a variant cover of May 2017's America comic. I'm sure it's been on other stuff before, but that's kind of her thing. She's kind of a newer character for people that don't know. She was born in created in 2011. And her place of origin, that place we see as her home, is the Utopian Parallel. So the Utopian Parallel is this that's why she's she does have two mothers in the comics as well. That's correct. A Utopian Parallel is a reality that is out of time, and in the presence of a being known as the Demiurge. So when she was 6 in the comics, right, the Utopian Parallel was threatened by destruction, and this is when she lost her parents in the comics. But that's why she's a one and only too, I think, is because she's coming from this Utopian Parallel. So there's probably only one of her parents as well. I mean, she has two parents. I mean, there's probably not versions of them in other ones, right? It's because she's coming from this place that's outside of time. So that's why they mentioned that. But yeah, she's got superhuman strength, durability, and the power of flight in the comics, and she can kick or punch open star-shaped holes in reality. That is something that we know as well.
Yeah, I am very excited to see where she comes up next, because She was a great character. Acted well. Like, and I also like how, you know, instead of like just using her as a plot device, as it seemed like that was going to be the case at the beginning. Like, I was a little worried that like, is she just going to be like a convenient plot device character? No, they fleshed her out more, gave her backstory, which is good, and you know, she's starting to trust herself in powers, right? Like that's cool. That like she's going to pop up somewhere in the comics, or not the comics. Yes, in the comics, but also in the MCU. I was looking down at my pile of comics, and that just came into my mind but I think that it's going to be really exciting to see what happens next, because she was such an exciting character in this. And along with Wanda, she was one of the best characters in this movie, which I love Doctor Strange, but I also don't think he was the best character in his own movie. I think he was the third best character in his own movie, which is fine because he was still a very good character. But Wanda and America Chavez stole the show for me.
Yeah, and for people that didn't know too, she is she's a lesbian in the comics, so she is as well in the movies as well. I mean, they reference that with her flag. The is it a pride flag when they add the other stuff on there?
Yeah, I believe
right?
I believe so.
It's just an updated version.
I believe so.
Now. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
I believe so.
But yeah, so that is there's the representation there for her. So we're getting some of that for people to kind of look onto. And this is, you know, something that was not released in certain countries because of that. I'm glad Disney did not cut it out like they've done for other things, because, you know, that representation is important. And hopefully we get to see more of her, because that was great. So where do we go from here? This is kind of where we'll start wrapping it up. We do get the Clea sorceress, right? She comes in, and I think she's actually the sorceress Supreme in the comics right now too. But because right now, like, Doctor Strange is dead, they did this whole thing.
Yep.
So I think she's taken over in that. But we see her. She says that his actions had caused an incursion when he was dreamwalking, and that they have to go through the dark dimension, which we saw in Doctor Strange 1, right, with Dormammu. So we that's where they're going. Is that a Doctor Strange 3 thing, or is this maybe something else that we get to see in another film? Or what's your thoughts?
I really hope it's a Doctor Strange 3 thing, because what it seems like to me is that it could kind of my theory maybe might be a little correct, you know, maybe just might be just slightly correct, because in January I made a video theorizing how Dormammu could come back. This is not how I thought it would happen, but I think it could, because in the comics, Clea is the Sorcerer Supreme. Well, right now she's the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth, but she's also been the Sorcerer Supreme of the Dark Dimensions. Her powers rival that of Doctor Strange's. She's very powerful, and I am very excited for that, because, you know, they interact quite a bit in the comics, and I really hope that this sets up either Doctor Strange 3 or something else. But whatever it is, I am very excited for it. I'm very excited for it because I that's the Dark Dimension. I rewatched Doctor Strange, like the first movie. I rewatched the parts in the Dark Dimension. That is 100% the Dark Dimension. And cannot wait to see where that goes, because there's a lot they can explore in that. They can explore, the whole thing with the mindless ones in the dark dimension, because that's how Dormammu gets defeated in the comics. Clea goes and tears down the barrier that keeps all of these like just monsters from destroying the dark dimension itself. And Dormammu has to stop fighting Strange to deal with that. And Doctor Strange helps him, and that's why he stops invading Earth. So there's some cool stuff they can explore with the dark dimension, and I'm excited. I'm very excited.
So incursions. This is a thing from the comics. I'm sure people have looked this up since we are recording on a Saturday. People probably already watched the movie and looked up incursions. As they stated in Multiverse of Madness, it's when two universes collide. In the comics, they usually collide at the focal point of Earth. They were introduced, I believe they were introduced in Hickman's Avengers. They definitely were when I read them. And in the New Avengers run, they focus on the Illuminati, who are aware of incursions and have kept them secret. They're not letting other people really know at that point. So again, there's the Illuminati for you. And incursions lead to, at some point down the road, secret wars, as it did in the comics, where some of these places start colliding and only like one universe can remain. Do you battle it out against the other one for supremacy, or do you let both of your places die, right? Like, what's the right thing to do? So that's where it seems like we might be going. We might be going to Secret Wars. So that'll be interesting. Now, where do we go with?
That means Doctor Strange sooner. So,
yeah. Well, that's probably the next Avengers film. I'd say is probably Secret Wars. We're still probably a long way away from it, but I think that's where they're going with this, and that could probably be at a certain point we can say this is the multiverse saga, because they kind of use Secret Wars to kind of clean up the multiverse stuff in the comics, and you could go from there and say, all right, no more multiverse. Boom, done. We did it, and you can go do other things. With Wanda, though, is she dead? Right? People have used we didn't see a body. We got rumors of a Scarlet Witch movie. It's going to be a little tough for me to forgive her for what she did with Professor X and Reed Richards and stuff like that. But if we take Strange at his word, right? When he met Wanda at the beginning of this film, and she's apologizing for Westview, he said, you chose what was right in the end. And that's all that matters. There was never any doubt. Mm-hmm. She chose what was right in the end of this as well. So I think in his mind, she's redeemed for toppling the mountain. I think in the fans' eyes, she's not easily going to be redeemed. I do think she needs to go on a journey like Loki did to get there a bit.
Depends on the fans you ask.
Yeah, exactly. It depends. If they're Wanda stans, yes, she did no wrong this whole time. Like reddit.com/r/Wanda did nothing wrong, right? That's a joke because people say that with Thanos, for people that don't know. But yeah, so that's going to be the next coffee mug that Hawkeye's holding, right? Is that Wanda was right. So where do we go from here? If she gets her own film, I feel like she'd be the hero of that movie, so it might be a little bit difficult to put her on a journey in one film. I don't know where she shows up next. This is kind of the difficult thing with the MCU right now, is that, we had 6 years between Strange films, and he was in, a couple other movies. We're getting to the point, it's 5 years between Thor, Ragnarok, and Love and Thunder. Like, we're getting to a point where we're 5 to 6 years for some of these sequels, and I just don't know where she would even show up, where it makes sense for her to show up, to start the redemption, to then lead to a movie.
Can I give you my hottest take yet of this that I have on this movie, and
Sure.
I'm not sure how much you'll like it, but I'm gonna say this. One thing, there's a lot of fans online who are saying Wanda, this is just Wanda's arc from Wanda. Why is she doing this? Didn't she already accept this before? No. Well, actually, yes and no, because here's the thing. The villain of this film is not Wanda. It is not Wanda. The villain of this film is the Scarlet Witch. They are two different characters in my mind. And it seems to be confirmed by the movie itself. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, Jack, you're stupid. These are the same character. Not quite. And there's a few pieces of evidence for this. And this is gonna take a little build up. And also, I wrote this while proctoring an exam, so it might not be entirely coherent. I promise I'll wrap it up at the end with it. But at the end of WandaVision, Wanda gets over losing vision and thinks he and Billy and Tommy are gone forever, right? That's she accepts that. However, she starts reading the Darkhold. She's reading it because Egg is like, you have chaos magic, and you have a lot of potential, blah blah blah, right? She starts reading the Darkhold, and that's the problem. The film explains several times that the Darkhold corrupts the mind of the individual who reads it, and as in the words of Sinister Strange, exacts a heavy toll on the user. Right, so that's an important detail to remember while I get into it. The Darkhold extracts a heavy toll on people. Wanda seems like she's made peace at the end of WandaVision, and she's still Wanda at the end of that show. However, when she goes to this cabin in that end credits scene, and she starts reading the Darkhold, and she hears the voices of Billy and Tommy, who she thought were gone forever, this realization shocks her, and it's the Darkhold manipulating her. It's the Darkhold going in and being like, "Hey, children are alive everywhere else. Why aren't they alive here? Your children are there. They're there. They're playing tag over there, playing ball over here. Look at all these other universes where they're all alive." And she has been using the Darkhold at this point in time for about a year, right? Because the blip happens in we'll say spring 2023. That's when it happens, because there's a few months that pass between the blip and Far From Home in Spider-Man. So there's a few months there. WandaVision takes place like 2 weeks after the blip. It's pretty soon after it.
3 weeks.
It's 3 weeks. So yeah, it's pretty soon after it. Doctor Strange is after December. It's sometime we'll say it's March 2024. That seems about right. In terms of the timeline, she's been using the Darkhold for about a year. She's been exploring it, and that shows in the little farm she has that's just been decimated. Right. She has had a lot of time to be corrupted. The Scarlet Witch corrupted Wanda's mind, physically trapping her inside it. We see this when Professor X goes inside her mind, and Wanda is trapped. The Scarlet Witch.
That's not the same. That's not the same Wanda though. When he's right, that's the Wanda that was with Billy and Tommy that she's taken control of.
I guess, but I still think that Wanda. Yeah, but Wanda is still separate from Scarlet Witch, and Wanda even says that when she gives Strange the ultimatum, give over America Chavez, or else it's not Wanda who's coming after her; it's the Scarlet Witch that's coming after her. I take that as an indication that these are different, slightly different characters. They're different. And the only thing that shocks Wanda back to being Wanda instead of the Scarlet Witch is seeing, and this is just a smart thing by Strange. Let Wanda see for herself what the outcome of what she's trying to do is. So the Darkhold allows Wanda to see in every other universe. She has her children, but not in hers. The Darkhold completely corrupted her. Wanda's arc makes sense in this. It's not reversing everything from WandaVision. It's not, because it's a logical continuation from it. She's using the Darkhold as a guide for literally any way to get her children back. Which makes sense, right? It's why she wants to steal America's powers rather than just have her be to another one, because she wants that security for it. Now that she knows they exist in every universe, she's like, I can protect against ever losing ever again. I think her arc makes perfect sense, and I think it is a fantastic arc. I think, but I'm going to say Wanda's not the villain because Scarlet Witch is. Scarlet Witch is a different character to me in this. So I don't see Wanda fans saying she did nothing wrong, but that's only if you accept these as distinctly different characters. Maybe not 100% distinct characters, but I feel like there is at least some subtle differences between the Scarlet Witch and Wanda. Because we see Wanda feels bad, right, about taking Westview under control at the end of it. Like when she realizes what she's done, she feels bad about that. I don't think the Scarlet Witch would feel bad about it because of like it's doing what she feels is good. And for other people saying, oh, Wanda didn't use the Darkhold enough to be corrupted. Like I said, it's been for a year. And if anyone says the Darkhold doesn't make other people do things like bad things, Agatha literally killed her entire family after using it. Like it makes you do bad things. It definitely does. And if you say it doesn't, we watched a different movie. I'm sorry.
I think where we run into the problem with the Darkhold is it's not established enough. And what I mean by that is I don't take Scarlet Witch as being a separate character from Wanda, because I take it as more of a title of the of what she's received, right, from the magic that she has been able to gain or unlock in herself. But so I think what she's telling Strange there with the Scarlet Witch will come for her is that, like, almost again with the I'm not being like, being reasonable type of thing, is that I'm going to come with you with my powers. It's not just going to be me rolling up. It's going to be me in all of my glory. The issue with the Darkhold that I have, because I can explain away the Bucky stuff, right? Bucky killed Tony's parents. I accept that because he was brainwashed. When we start talking about corruption with the Darkhold is we don't know how much it's actually doing. And what I mean by that is, what is the Darkhold's goal, right? To me, the Darkhold's goal is aligned with Wanda's of getting her children, and I don't see what the Darkhold gains from that, right? So to me, this is almost more of an Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader type of thing. And in that case, I still put the blame on Anakin Skywalker because he's corrupted by the dark side of the Force. It's the same thing as the Darkhold, I feel. And what I mean by that is it's still Wanda doing some of this stuff. She's corrupted by the power, but ultimately she's still up to her actions, which is why I do think she decides to end it all and, let the place fall on her. Where I wonder where we go with her from here is because she's lost Vision. She's lost her kids. She can't get them in this universe, supposedly, right now. I don't know what else there is to do with her character other than redeem her. And I don't know what else she would do after that without us eventually going back into a circle with this, because this is what they do in the comics every single time is Wanda goes crazy, says no more mutants, kills all of the mutants, and then is eventually a hero again, and then eventually turns villain again, and then a hero again, and eventually villain. I want them to avoid that because her comic history is just confusing as all hell right now. So that's where I worry with us going with that. And I wish we got more of the information on the Darkhold, because Strange is all of a sudden corrupted by it, but maybe not super corrupted by it. He got a third eye, but he doesn't really have the black fingers, and he seems to be acting his normal self. So that is probably the weakest part of the script, is exactly what the Darkhold corrupts, how it corrupts you. Everybody just says it does. But we get this end credit scene, not the end credit scene, we get the end scene where his eye pops out and he's in pain. But then we get the end credit scene where he's like still happily walking on the street and just can automatically power when his eye opens. Like, that's where it's confusing. Is I thought in the street when he has the third eye, like, oh no, he's corrupted. But then he's acting all cool with Clea, you know, of, oh yeah, let's go stop this incursion. So that's the most confusing part with me.
Let me try and answer both of those, because I think I have an answer for the second one. I think the mid-credit scene takes place a little bit after that. I don't think it's immediately after.
No, it does. It does. But
that, because
what I was saying is that we get this hit with this moment, right? The last scene we see is the eye open and him in pain, like, and you're supposed to be like, oh crap, he's corrupted. But now I don't know what the third eye means, because he seems really good with it weeks later.
I think that what it is, you know, the Darkhold corrupts, and that it becomes a part of him. Like he's trying to control it, and you know, with practice for a sorcerer, it does help with that. But I think for the Darkhold corrupting, and honestly, I agree, this is a bit of a weakness with the script, right? I feel like they spent 5 more minutes doing like explaining it, but then, you know, people aren't going to like it because it's more exposition dumping, right? That's the challenge with it. I think they do, at least for me, a good job of showing, not telling, with it, with like what the Darkhold's goal is, because we see 4 uses of, or 4 uses of it, essentially, or at least implied uses of it. And from what I can tell, the Darkhold's goal is chaos. It's just chaos. That's what it is. It's destruction and chaos. It's showing Wanda all these ways to get her kids back, because it wants her to go through the universe and destroy things. And you know, like that's what it is. It tells Superior Strange how to do how to save the world, right? Because they know it's going to destroy another universe. Like that's the implication of it. It tells Sinister Strange to do that because it destroys his universe. Like that's the Darkhold's goal. That's how I read it. I think that what it does, its goal isn't on any side. It's just full out chaos and destruction. And I think that makes sense for it, and it's trying to corrupt whatever user it can to do that to them, because you know, for Wanda it makes sense. She's one of the most powerful beings in this universe. Makes sense that it would try and corrupt her. And I do agree, though, that it doesn't do a good job of telling exactly how it corrupts. Like, is it just the reading of it? And because it seems like that's what it is. It seems
for the
like,
dream walk.
Although we do hear that, like, from the characters in the film, that dream walking is one of the biggest things, right? Like it's one of the worst things you can do in this. Like, so there is that. But
do you agree with that though? Like, do you think it should be really that bad?
I mean, it is going between different universes. It can involve necromancy, as we've seen.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, it can cause an incursion. So I like that, because presumably that's like what causes this incursion.
Yeah,
I think
that's what it does. Yeah.
Right. So that's that. I think that I get why it's one of the worst things that it can do. And it would make sense then that it extracts, as Sinister Strange says, a heavier toll. You know, like that. So I can buy into it, but I will say, for people who don't want to who don't want to do all of like the thinking that I did, because hey, I had 10 hours proctoring an exam yesterday where I could just think about this. So I understand not everyone wants to do that with these, and that's fine. But that is a weakness potentially of this movie, that it doesn't explain that particularly well. But at the end of the day, I don't dock it much as a Marvel film for that, because I feel like almost every single one of them has an element that isn't super well explained as to how it works. Like a lot of Marvel movies have that, where like, the explanation is either inconsistent throughout it, or it's just like, you have to do you have to make a lot of assumptions for it to truly make sense. Like, for example, time travel in Endgame. I'm not even fully sure how that works at this point, and I've seen the movie like 6 or 7 times. I'm not completely sure how it works. The quantum realm, like how that functions. Maybe that will get answered really well in Quantumania. But from Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ant-Man, not 100% sure about the rules of it and how it works. There's a lot of questions that get asked in these, and I hope I hope it's answered later, but it's not, because the Darkhold's gone in every universe. So that's never what the Darkhold does. The world will never know, what it actually does.
Now in the comics, Strange does have a third eye, which is the manifestation of the eye of Agamotto.
Yes.
Now that's different from what we get here, but I'm assuming they're going to use it the same way. So
it would be interesting if they do.
Yeah, in the comics, it gives them a magically enhanced sight. It's a revealer of truth, and see into the souls of the others. So I'm assuming he's corrupted. It gives him the eye, but he's still able to be good, right? But I don't know, it's just like, it seems like a big tonal shift from that end scene to the mid-credit scene. So it was a little bit of a, oh, we're left with his eye there. Oh no, he's fine a few weeks later walking on the street. Like, to set up the Clea stuff. Okay. Else on this movie before we've been almost talking about this one 2 hours. We still have to talk about Moon Knight. But
yep.
We got this. That was something that was in there. We got Wundagore, right? Like the mountain. That's from the comics as well. So some cool little Easter egg stuff in there.
Yeah. There's some other cool Easter eggs that we didn't even mention. The Living Tribunal is in it for all of 3 seconds as they're falling through multiverses. Kind of cool nod to it. Rintra makes an appearance.
Yes. Yep.
Which is kind of cool. I do like that. I think it's kind of cool to see.
That's a Minotaur, right? Is that the right
word?
already.
Yes. That is correct. He is a green Minotaur. Yes. So that's kind of cool that we do see some of that. And of course, Pizza Papa cameo.
Yeah.
So all equally cool cameo. All equally cool.
Yeah, and just a heads up here, Benedict Cumberbatch said he could see himself playing Doctor Strange for another decade. So, I mean, he's not going anywhere soon. So,
hopefully, could he extend that to 2 more decades?
I know, because 1 decade gives you 1 more film, right? With the way that they're going in gaps here.
Don't remind me of that.
Yeah, so if you want to give us any of your thoughts on Multiverse of Madness, because it's been controversial, you can email us at marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com, Twitter at TO Infinity Saga, Facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond. And so we have a second episode coming out that is the Moon Knight finale. So if you want to double dip, that'll be in your feed on Sunday, Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day with Moon Knight and Khonshu, the god of an Egyptian god. So that'll wrap us up here on our end for Multiverse of Madness. We'll see if we want to ever revisit this topic or any feedback that we get. But have a great rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you all later.